Right, Saturday, 12:30 p.m, the Premier League is back. Chelsea are back, and the good news is for 2024 now, the international breaks are over. We haven't got another one, and can I be honest with you, right? I'm a football podcaster. I should be watching these games with a keenish eye, maybe looking at our players that are out on international duty, seeing how they're performing and who should be coming back into the lineup. But if I'm being honest, I ain't watched a minute of football in the past 2 weeks. I'm not bothered with it, mate. Wake me up when it's tournament time. All I want to do is watch the Premier League. And if it ain't Chelsea or Chelsea related, then I'm really not that bothered, mate. I'd rather just watch a bit of boxing, to be honest with you. But now we're back. And right now, you can see the Premier League table, and Chelsea are sat pretty in third position. And we're third with only one win in our last 5 games, which really does pay dividends to how well Chelsea and Enzo Maresca has started the season. Because to go through a little bit of a dry patch, but still be sitting in those Champions League spots and ahead of some of the teams we are, is commendable. But now we need to start winning games. And we've got a very, very winnable run of fixtures in a congested schedule, but there's so many games in there that I'd put us as absolute favourites in. But we need to win at the King Power, because we need to start pulling away from some of the teams above us. Realistically, right, in the schedule of fixtures we've got coming up now, within the space of a week, a team could go from 10th to 3rd, really, couldn't they? When you look at how close it is on points and the fact it's coming down to who's been probably more potent in front of goal, really. What we do know is that Arsenal and Nottingham Forest are playing each other this weekend, so ideally they end up having a draw. We win against Leicester, and we really do bring some ground, bring a gap between the two teams that are below us and all the teams that are below us, to be honest, because it is tight there, and we do need to start pulling away now. But pulling away means beating Leicester City, and doing that, I believe, is easier said than done. So in today's video, I am going to preview our opposition. As always, I'm going to give you lot my starting lineup for the game, and this was actually a hard one to pick because there's been various reports coming out of players that are suffering with injury at the moment, that have picked up knocks and whatnot, illness, unavailability, and also players that are flying in and literally going to have one day at Cobham before the game itself, which is obviously the early kickoff as well. And as always, I am going to give you lot, the hardcore, my score prediction at the end of the video. But before we get into all that, people, welcome back to the Joey Knight podcast. If you are new around here, if you like the content and you want to see more from myself, please hit the subscribe button. If you're not new around here and you haven't hit the subscribe button, you're one of the 30% of you that haven't, then shame on you. You awful, awful people. I cannot believe you would do something like that to me. I'm only joking, but do me a favour. Make sure you do hit it. And speaking of doing me a favour, you'll notice that I'm here today in my office, I like to call it, which is actually my bedroom. Literally sleep on a bed there. But yeah, either way, you'll notice I'm here, and I'm not with the big dog, Josh Aveste, and I am going to be straight back in the studio with Josh, covering Chelsea against Leicester a couple of hours after the game. So you will get your post-match review Saturday, late afternoon, early evening, something like that. And it will be with me and the big dog. But speaking of the big dog, we have now launched our joint podcast, Joey and Josh, where we're just talking a load of shit, really. All things life. We're doing a bit of true crime. We're doing a bit of what's in the current news at the moment. We're doing loads of different bits and pieces. So I'm going to link it in the description. Make sure you head over there and make sure you subscribe to that channel, because then you'll get to see us talking about all non-sport related stuff and whatnot. But for the time being, we are talking about Chelsea. So let's get into it. Now, Leicester City are sat 15th in the Premier League table with just 2 wins to their name, and it doesn't make for good reading, does it? Especially coming off the back of a 3-0 loss to Man United. But I actually believe that they are better than their league position suggests, and that they've actually been better than their league position suggests. Man United had the new manager bounce, didn't they? Ruben van Nistelrooy came in, caretaker manager and whatnot, and that was always going to give them a spring in their step to get rid of Erik ten Hag. So much so that we only managed to draw with them when we should have been absolutely blowing them away at Old Trafford. But I'm over that one now. Let's stop going on about it. But barring that Man United game, right, and obviously the 5-2 loss, I think they had to Man United, but they fielded the B team. Leicester have a B team, same way Chelsea do. Either way, barring those two games, I would say that every single match they've been in, they've been pretty competitive in. I think they've done really well since coming back up to the Premier League, and I think in my prediction pre-season, I predicted them to go down, and that's because I thought they were going to get the points deduction. Well, now they've escaped that, so now it's all to play for, and Leicester City really do need to start pushing on now and getting away from that relegation zone, because I think they're definitely decent enough to stay up and stay in the Premier League this season. In fact, out of the bottom 7 teams, Steve Cooper's men have outscored everyone barring Wolverhampton Wanderers, meaning they have had the ball in the back of the net more times than both West Ham and the Man United, but they've conceded plenty too. And if that is an indication of how they will approach this game, then this could be a game that absolutely plays into Chelsea's hands. Because teams don't want to be having a shootout with Chelsea Football Club. Believe me, 9 out of 10 times we will win those sort of games. And it's very easy to go, oh, well, don't do that then. Sit deep, play the low block and be defensive, try and catch them on the counter-attack. And it's all well and good in doing that, but a few teams have started games trying to do that against us this season, and because we've been very good at scoring in the opening half hour, especially in comparison to last season where we weren't doing that at all, then we've been able to force them out of the traps, and they've had to come forward, otherwise they're not going to get anything out of the match, or at best they're only going to get a draw or whatever. So I don't believe that it's as simple as play the low block against Chelsea and you might get a result like it was last season. I think we've got more about us now, more resilience, a bit more character, and more to combat that. And let's not forget another thing we've got going our way in this match, and that is that Enzo Maresca knows this team like the back of his hand. It's literally the same squad, isn't it, that he helped win the championship last season. 1 or 2 additions in there, but in terms of the starting lineup, who's different? Buenanote, he weren't there last season. He's a good little player, actually. Terrific little player, Buenanote. Don't know why Brighton loaned him out, if I'm honest, because I've always thought he was pretty tasty, to be honest. But yeah, either way, Enzo Maresca's worked with a lot of these guys last season, so he's going to know their strengths, he's going to know their weaknesses, and he's going to know how to get at these Leicester players. So without any further ado, let's stop rambling on about the Foxes and let's talk about the mighty Blues, and this is the team that I want to see start the game against Leicester. Right, so we've got Robert Sanchez in goal. I don't think that Jorgensen's going to have displaced him during this international break or anything like that, and he had a couple of errors against Arsenal, but he also made a few key saves against Arsenal. I think he's a good shot stopper, Robert Sanchez, but is he the man to go forward? I really don't know. Now, there were links, weren't there, with the Liverpool goalkeeper, Kelleher, it doesn't really matter until we sign him. I'd love him. I think he's fucking brilliant, mate. I think he's the best backup goalkeeper in the Premier League, that Kelleher. So, yeah, definitely one that I would like. But then again, how many fucking goalkeepers are we going to buy? Just bring Petrovic back. And I've heard a few people saying that Penders is pretty decent. So, maybe we get old Penders in there at some point. I don't know. But for this match, I will be starting Robert Sanchez. Right, here's the part where I've got to be truthful with you lot. I had recorded my whole video under the assumption that Enzo Maresca's press conference was going to be on the Friday, as it usually would be. And at the time of finally editing and uploading my video, I go to find out that Reece James is now injured. He has suffered another injury setback. Apparently it's only a minor one, but how many times have we heard that? And it's ruled him out for the best part of a fucking season or something like that. And I had included him in my team because we were hearing that Malo Gusto was actually a doubt, having withdrawn from the France under-21 squad. Now it's starting to look like Malo Gusto isn't as much of a doubt, but it's definite that Reece James won't be featuring in this game. Really, really disappointing news for Reece James because he's having a stop-start season at the moment. He was dropped in the last match, and that was just a tactical thing rather than an injury thing. And now he's suffered another setback just as he's coming back and getting a run of games in the team. So gutted for our captain that he is going to have to sit this one out, but I'm going to stick Malo Gusto straight in there in his place. And if Malo Gusto, by some really unlucky situation, doesn't happen to be fit, then I'd probably stick Axel Disasi in there at right back. I've always said on the channel, I actually don't think Axel Disasi is a bad right back at all, you know. But let's see how it goes. For now, Malo Gusto's in for me. There has been doubts about the defence and about the fitness. I think Fofana and Colwell will start, and I'd have Cucurella at left back as always. Now, here's the interesting part, because we're going to take a little look at the midfield and you'll see that I have paired Caicedo with Enzo Fernandez. Now, you'll be asking me, why not Romeo Lavia? But before we get into all that, have you ever wanted to chat with the big dog and I directly? Well, this is the time to do so, because I have a huge announcement for you lot, and that is that Stakemate are now the official sponsor of the Joey Knight podcast. And on the app, you can chat to me and the channel fan favourite directly, which many of you are already doing so. But what is Stakemate, you may ask? Well, this review on the App Store will explain it far better than I can. This app is as if Bet360 and Snapchat had a baby. Great sportsbook and a great app to just chat with the lads. All you require is to be 18 years or older and living inside the UK, then click the link in the description and download the Stakemate app. Once you're there, you've got to go through the sign-up process. It literally only takes 2 minutes. Now you're in. At the bottom of the page, click groups, and at the top left, hit the invite code. Type in code JOEYK, all capitals. Then you will be an official member of the hardcore, where you can ask questions, chat with me and Josh, and suggest bets for us to put on. Now, every single week, me and Josh both slap an ACCA into that chat, so let's get into this week's. Right, so I'm not going to bet on Chelsea this week, because I just don't want to jinx it, and you never want to bet on the early kickoff, to be honest. I'm going to go Brighton to win away at Bournemouth. I'm going to go Aston Villa to beat Crystal Palace. I am going to go Brentford to get the away win against Everton, and then we roll on to the Monday Night Football, where I am backing Newcastle to continue their good form by beating West Ham. So I'm going to whack that straight into the Joey Knight squad, and you can even copy that bet yourself if you want with just one tap. So not only can you join our community, the good news keeps on coming, because when you sign up to Stakemate, you will get £20 in free bets when you spend your first £10. And they're offering even more bonuses as you play. So hit the link in the description to download Stakemate today, and remember my code JOEYK, all caps. But please remember, you must be 18 or over, you must be living inside the UK, and we all need to remember to gamble responsibly. Well, Lavia did look like he had a bit of a knock against Arsenal, but nothing was really confirmed. It was a little bit sketchy, but then we know he was picked for Belgium, and he didn't appear in either game for Belgium. Not only that, the Belgian manager actually said that he had a problem with his hamstring, so that's a little bit concerning. I'm not sure whether he'll be available for selection or not. Obviously, Enzo Maresca's press conference is scheduled in tomorrow, and maybe we get a little bit more clarity, but Enzo Fernandez has been playing well in the matches that he's played and when he's been coming off the bench in the last sort of 3 or 4 games. So let's test it out. Let's give him the run out alongside Caicedo. Remember, we're going to have Cucurella probably inverting in this one as well, so he's going to have that extra bit of protection. And let's see a little bit more from Enzo Fernandez like we saw against Arsenal when he threaded that ball through to Pedro Neto. I do believe that this is a game and this is an opportunity, if Lavia is injured, for him to really make somewhat of a statement and show Enzo Maresca why he needs to be in that team. Now, the concerning thing about those two boys is they would have literally just flown back from South America, won't they? I think they would have trained once lightly on Friday, but at the same time, it's not like they're not match fit. And yeah, jet lag, but fuck it. Like, what's it really matter? Do you know what I mean? I've flown back from Saudi and stuff like that and gone and recorded personal best times on my 5Ks within 24 hours. And I remember I've flown back from Thailand and gone sparring that day and stuff like that. Like, I'm not saying it's ideal. I'm just saying it's not it's not that bad. They're going to be fine. They're going to be able to start him. I very much would. And remember, the King Power Stadium, bit of a happy hunting ground for Enzo Fernandez, because he was the one that dinked that ball in over the top for, who was it? Was it Havertz? It was João Felix, I think it was. It was João Felix, yeah. Remember that? First sort of bit of Enzo Fernandez's Chelsea career. I'm digressing here, but either way, I'd have him there. Now, when you look at the winger options, there's been a lot of calls recently, hasn't there, to drop Noni Madueke, and I don't know. I do understand that Noni Madueke's numbers obviously are significantly heightened by that game against Wolves, and some people don't think that he's worthy of a starting spot. I personally think that, again, there's horses for courses. In some matches, I do think he's worthy of it. In some matches, maybe I'd have Pedro Neto over on that side or someone else. Who knows? But for this match, I definitely would start him there, because it feels, or it looks to me, like Leicester will be starting Christensen. I think his name's Christensen. He's the Danish guy, the kid, the Danish blonde kid. Well, of course he's blonde. He's fucking Danish, isn't he? But either way, Christensen, if that's his name, or Christensen, I can never pronounce it. Sometimes the commentators get it wrong, but I've seen him play, and he's not a terrific little player for me. I think he's bang average, to be honest. So having Madueke dribble at him is definitely going to really, really test him. And then when you look at James Justin over on the other side, I do rate him, I think he's a good player, but he's a player that likes to get forward. 3 goal contributions in 10 games so far, a couple of goals and an assist for Justin. So if he tries doing that sort of thing against Chelsea, you know what happens, mate. You leave space in behind, and that's where Pedro Neto is going to be running into, my friend. And Pedro Neto is becoming a key player for Chelsea so far. So I think you start with those 2 wingers, with obviously the big dog Cole Palmer bang in the middle of the 2 of them. And if things aren't going well, and if Madueke isn't having the success that I actually anticipate him having in this match, then you can either do one or 2 things, right? You can move Palmer over to the right. Now, I know Maresca hasn't really done that, but you see Palmer drifting wide sometimes. And remember, Palmer was the best player in the Premier League last season playing in the right wing position. He wasn't even in the centre attacking mid position. I'm not saying he didn't float about and whatnot, but he was on the right wing. So you can drift him over there, get Madueke off, and then maybe sub João Felix on. Because again, like I said, it's a happy hunting ground for him. He's scored against the Foxes before, and João Felix is a player that I do very much think warrants more minutes than just these Conference League games and whatnot. I think he can make a genuine impact in the Premier League, especially off the bench, giving him a bit more time. And do you know what it is? Not only that, right? Listen, if Cole Palmer's having a quiet match, and if he's carrying a knock or anything like that, then sub Cole Palmer off and have João Felix on there. There's nothing wrong with that. I understand Cole Palmer is the best player in the Premier League, in my opinion. But if he's having a quieter match, if he's carrying a knock or something like that, sub Cole Palmer off and get João Felix on there. Put Pedro Neto over onto the right wing, and then here's where I'm going to surprise you. Despite all the recent good performances when he's been coming on, of Mykhailo Mudryk, I would actually say get Jaden Sancho in there for half hour or so, because he's back fit and available now, apparently. And if Leicester do start to sit deep, Sancho's a great player for being able to break down a low block. So when you look at how Pedro Neto plays and how Mykhailo Mudryk plays, I think that stylistically in what they want to do, they might be a little bit similar. And I think it's good to have opposites. And that's why you see Pedro Neto and Madueke starting, because they are opposites in a way in terms of how they attack teams. Madueke wants it to his feet and he wants to run at players and dribble. Pedro Neto, I'm not saying he doesn't do that, but he likes to run in behind also and run into those areas. So that's why I think that Maresca likes the balance of having those 2 who play differently. So I think that, say for example, Pedro Neto goes on to the other side, that's when we should maybe bring Jaden Sancho on, who's a little bit more in the mould of a Madueke, but I actually think his ball retention is better. Now, speaking of Jaden Sancho, by the way, I need to touch on these Jamie O'Hara comments, because I see the other day that he was talking a load of waffle about him on TalkSport, and I'll read out the quote, right? Jaden Sancho has been given an opportunity at Chelsea to prove people wrong, and it hasn't happened yet. Man United spent a lot of money on him and it didn't work, so he's gone to Chelsea and showed signs of brilliance and confidence at the start, but he seems to have fallen back into his old ways since then. I think the problem with Sancho at Chelsea is there are better players in that squad, Pedro Neto, Noni JOEYK, and they're more influential than him. It's always going to be difficult with a big group of attacking players in the same squad, but I think Enzo Maresca has worked out that Sancho isn't as good as most of them. Now listen, I get it, yeah? News runs dry during the international break and you got to go for your clicks and whatever and push the narrative. But that narrative expired a long time ago, my friend, because he didn't go from Man United to Chelsea, did he? He went from Man United to Borussia Dortmund last season and played a part in them reaching a Champions League final. So the sort of narrative that shadowed around Jaden Sancho last season was dismissed when he went and ripped it up at Borussia Dortmund. And then he's come to Chelsea Football Club and he's had 3 goal involvements in 4 starts. The first time he comes off the bench and a match that's destined for a 0-0 draw as it was last season at the Vitality against Bournemouth, he grabs an assist in when he assists Nkunku for the winner. Then the next match against West Ham, he plays really well, gets another assist in that one. The Brighton match, he's electric. He gets an assist, has the ball in the back of the net, only for it to be ruled out through VAR. And then he comes up against Liverpool, and obviously in that game he's up against one of the best right backs in world football in Trent Alexander-Arnold, who, to be fair, yeah, kept him a little bit quiet but also fouled him. Jaden Sancho should have won us a penalty in that game and VAR didn't even decide to look at it. So I don't get why we're trying to push a narrative that Jaden Sancho's fallen back into his old ways. What are his old ways? You tell me, what are his old ways? Because you don't really know anything about that, do you? So really, you're just talking shit here, aren't you? Just trying to push a narrative that expired a long, long time ago. 3 goal involvements in 4 starts for Jaden Sancho. Then he's left on the bench against Newcastle. By the way, it's a game we won, and it was a game that our wingers were performing very well in. And then he's been out of the squad with illness and injury at the same time. He was ill, then he picked up a knock, now he's back available. What's the big deal? Why are you still talking about Jaden Sancho? What you should be focusing on is Spurs, who have lost 3 out of their last 5 Premier League games, and next up have got to play Pep's Man City. So stay in your own lane, mate. Either way, leave Sancho alone. He's the boy. He's going to do good things for us this season. People, I'm very excited to hear your takes on this game, what you think is going to happen. I'm going to go for a score prediction of, do we keep a clean sheet? Because we definitely fucking win it. Don't know. There might be a few lapses in concentration after that international break. I'm going to go 3-1 Chelsea. I'll be happy with a 3-1. I'd rather it was a 3-0, but I will go a 3-1 Chelsea. Maybe Vardy nicks one. You know, wouldn't begrudge him for that as long as we beat him by a good few goals. Either way, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Smash the like on the video if you haven't already. God, can't get my words out there. Tell you where I can get my words out, on the Josh and Joey channel. Make sure you're subscribed to that one. It's linked in the description to this video. Thank you guys. I've missed you, by the way, and I am so happy that the Chelsea content is back and the games are going to be running thick and fast, so I am going to be speaking to you guys so much more. Looking forward to catching up with you in the comment section below. I will see you all in the next one.